So what happens when you're in a position of leadership and you have some people that you're leading, but they are struggling with shame or they're struggling from embarrassment because of some things that are happening in their lives or have happened in their lives? We're going to be talking about that today on the 306 podcast. Welcome back to the 306 podcast. My name is Scott, and if you are a local with us, you're just trekking along with us, thank you for joining us again. We're so glad to have you here. If you're not a local, all you have to do to become a local is subscribe here on YouTube or on Facebook. You can connect with us. Our purpose here at the 306 podcast is to help develop leaders in every walk of life, whether you're a student in college, professional, family life, whatever the case may be. You can improve your leadership skills, and we're going to be here to help you do that. And so subscribe to our content if you like it, and we would really, really appreciate that. So today we're going to be talking about what happens when you're leading others, and maybe you're dealing with some people that have some shame or they have some regret happening in their lives. And I'm really excited to welcome back Micah Marshall from Refuge Youth Network. How are you, Micah?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Scott?
You know what? I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. And so we're going to be talking about that today. And the reason I wanted to bring Micah in is because he just has, he's in a position with Refuge where he's working with our youth, and he understands some of the things that they're going through, and he has a really good insight on how to lead them in really applicable ways, especially for adults that have to interact with youth. And so we want to talk about that. So Micah, with Refuge, or just anywhere in life, I guess, what are you seeing as some of the major problems that kids are facing where they have this sense of shame or regret or embarrassment?
You know, it's so interesting to be in a position, we've been, Refuge has been around now going on 8 years. I've been working with students for 9 years now, and you see a lot of ups and downs, a lot of stories that come in and out of your life, and a lot of relationships with kids, young adults, volunteers, whatever it might be. And we do see so many different, if I could put it this way, shades of shame that you see with students coming from so many different scenarios, whether it's because of the family that they were raised in, whether it's a situation that they were put in, or a situation that they chose to be a part of, whatever it might be. There is this level of shame that you find, and I don't think it's just with teenagers. I think it's with anybody.
Yeah.
That you can sometimes feel like you're not worthy enough to be doing what you're doing. And especially as a Christian, this is one of these areas for us where it's so easy for us to feel guilty and feel like we can't be used by God. And we cannot be able to minister and be able to do that. And so what we see in culture is we always are celebrating the failures of others, and we're not celebrating the victories of others. And so it's almost like we live in a culture that when someone fails, it's like a celebratory thing where people are looking at it, they're posting about it, they're writing blogs about it, they're doing all these things to see, especially Christian leaders. And the scenario is always, well, wait till they fall, watch, just wait, it takes a matter of time. And so we live in this culture that's really kind of glorifies failure, and it's really just an odd thing to see that and to know that. And so how do you, as a leader, go against the culture, go countercultural, and teach the students that, sometimes being a great leader means that you're going to fail. And how do you define yourself through those failures, through that shame? And how do you come out from that? And, is it just being able to just keep moving on and act like nothing happened? Or is it learning from your mistakes? And so there's so many different ways that you can teach youth and young adults how to navigate through that. And what we have found is that we walk with them through their problems, through their issues, through what's going on. And a lot of times in leadership, we tend to dictate and say, no, you need to get from A to B, when it should be us showing them, no, this is how you get from A to B. This is how you get to where you need to be.
Yeah, and actually leading them instead of just preaching at them.
Yes.
Yeah, and what would you say to the people that jump to blame social media? They tend to jump to blame just technology and kids having cell phones. Oh, well, this is only because kids have cell phones or they have access to the internet. Is social media and the internet the problem, or is it the tool that is exposing the problem?
Well, I mean, the problem has been around before social media. I mean, we have felt guilt and shame way before that. I mean, I'm pretty sure Adam and Eve in the garden in Genesis, right off the bat, the Bible says that they felt shameful because they were naked and they hid themselves from the Lord. So shame is not something that's new. It's something that has been around literally since the beginning of mankind. And so I think what social media does is it enhances it and exposes so much more. When years ago, if you messed up or did something, it was probably just local gossip that went around your town. Maybe someone in your family heard about it somewhere else. But the reality is that we live in such a digitalized world that what you're doing and what you're seeing is instantaneously, I can post something, I can say something, I can do something. And within milliseconds, it's actually out there on the internet. It's available to everyone at anywhere in the world. Yeah. So if I mess up or I make a mistake, man, it's just one Snapchat picture or one Instagram video that can be loaded within seconds, and the whole world can know that you have failed and that you have messed up. Yeah. And then it never goes away.
Right. It's forever.
It's forever. And that's one thing we're trying to teach students is like, when you do things and put it on the internet, this is a forever thing. Like, you have future employers that will look at this, future spouses that will look at this, I thank God that social media wasn't where it was when we were teenagers and we were kids. It was just coming out. Facebook had just came out as a thing that only colleges had.
Yep.
And you had to sign up through your college and all this stuff. And so none of this stuff was available. I mean, and if it was, I probably wouldn't be in the position that I'm in. But we have to have this understanding that shame and feeling guilty is something that all of us will deal with. All of us have this scenario in our life, and it's just going to be really, how do you choose to deal with it? What defines the resolution to the problem once you're involved with the problem?
Yeah. Yeah, and for what we've been seeing, and I work in social media, and so part of my job is watching what's trending and what's happening, and you're seeing so many of these young people that are developing these followings or developing these influences, and it turns them completely upside down.
Yeah.
And so many people, they gain these followings because, they just start out, it's an outlet for them.
Yeah.
They deal with shame or anxiety, or they have a regret, and they need to talk about it. And so they go to YouTube or Facebook or Instagram and they talk about it, and then they just get this massive following. But then they're not prepared to handle other people's problems.
Yeah.
They were trying to figure out their own, and now other people are coming to them as an expert.
Yeah.
And so what are some ways that we can make kids feel empowered enough? And I know that's a touchy word, but empowered enough to step up and say, you know what, I am struggling with something. Who can I go to, or how do I... Because you can take social media away, and kids are still going to feel it. It's exactly what you said. It's not a technology thing; it's a heart thing.
Absolutely.
So how do you get them to be confident enough to step up to you, or to an adult, someone in a I don't want to say authority, but someone in a leadership loving position to help them?
Well, I think number one is allow yourself to be transparent to a generation. Don't be untouchable. So many times we get this, we call it the superstar syndrome. Like you're especially in ministry. Like ministry is it's so easy to get caught up in. The fact that people, great message, great sermon, you did great on Sunday, you did great Tuesday, that was a great podcast, or that was a great post, or blah, blah, blah. It's so easy to get caught up in the fame of the celebrity thing of being, I'm a pastor and I have this and I have that. When, a student just really needs you. They need to know who you are on that basis and on that level of being a real person. And so for me, number one, if I'm going to lead a generation through this process, they got to know, number one, that, man, like, I've made my mistakes and I still make mistakes.
Right.
And I'm going to continually make mistakes. And this isn't something that any of us are immune to. We're all going to have these problems where sin is an issue in everyone's life. And there was only one person who didn't have the issue, and that was Jesus. And that's who we're striving to be like. So my first thing is be transparent. Just allow them to know, like, these are the failures that I have had in my life. Number two, allow them to know that their failure doesn't define them. You're not defined by the failures of what you have done in your life. You're going to be defined on how you react to that failure, how you come back from that. We live in a culture that loves a comeback story. Mm-hmm. They love the underdog story. And so be able to champion them through faith and through relationship, that God has a plan for their life, even in their failures. God's plan is not, he's not going to stop loving you and stop caring about you just because you have failed. He's going to continually love you consistently through that. And that's what we have to have them understand. So being transparent, letting them know that their failures don't define them. And I think the third thing is too, saying, okay, what can I do as your leader, as someone who cares about you? How can I help you? And ask them for an answer from them. There's these, there's counseling and there's coaching and there's all these things where, counseling is you come to me and ask me for my advice and I give it to you. Coaching is I lead you to find the answer within yourself, whatever it might be. However you want to counsel or coach, whatever you want to do, just ask the student, what can I do to help you? And maybe they come to that answer within themselves that you can lead and guide them. And if not, say, hey, maybe these are some options where I can help you and lead you and guide you. And I would say lastly, probably, and it's probably one of the better ones, is show them in Scripture men and women who have failed that God still used. Yeah. Because the Bible is entirely filled with that. There is only one perfect person that's mentioned in that Bible, and the rest of the men and women that we read about that God used, they had guilt and they had shame, tremendous shame. I mean, Jesus' best friend. Mm-hmm. Having this issue of lying on and betraying, but yet he had this shame. But God said, "Hey, also go and tell Peter that I'm still alive." And so it's saying, listen, it's not what you're doing here. It's not this failure. We're not going to allow you to live in shame. Like I refuse to allow you to live in shame. Yeah, and in that.
So in working with kids and in youth, just in general, are you seeing? From my experience in talking with people, they tend to come to the realization of, I'm not going to talk to anyone about whatever I'm struggling with because it's very unique and specific to me. Yeah. And they don't want to, they don't think that anyone would understand them. Especially an adult, because adults don't go through, any kind of issues.
No, we don't have problems.
Because there's this like strange idea that like, oh, well, once you grow up, you don't struggle with lust, right? Or you don't struggle with,
and that's the mentality addictions. As a teenager.
And it's like, oh yeah, I just need to grow up and then I'll get over it. Yeah. And it's not true. If anything, it gets more frequent, the temptations, and you just have to, and the thing is, you don't overcome sin. Yeah. You just rely on God in order to be able to help you overcome it. Yeah. But knowing that it's not always going to happen. And so what would you say to a kid who, is maybe watching and saying, I get what he's saying, but like no one in the Bible was addicted to pornography. Yeah. Nope. So what would you say to them? Yeah. In that circumstance.
Well, and the issue is, okay, so the issue is sin, right?
Right.
So that levels the playing field for everybody. No matter if you're a liar, a gossip, an addict, whatever you might be. The level playing field is sin. It's a sin issue, period, hands down. But again, as a culture, what we have done in Christian culture is we take a level of sin and we escalate it to a point higher than other sins. Mm-hmm. And you have this sin is worse than this sin, this sin, and this sin, and this sin. And we have this tendency to do that all of the time, saying that like, hey, if you struggle with pornography, this is like horrible. And if like you struggle with, a sexual identity issue, like this is where you're at. And if you have an affair, this is where you're at. And
those are like the don't talk about.
Yeah, like let's not talk about these levels of sin. But when God looks upon us as mankind and as humankind, he sees one issue and it's sin. Mm. And so obviously, number one, I want to level the playing field with the student and saying, listen, it's level. Like, people in the Bible, they didn't deal with pornography, but you didn't deal with what they dealt with in the Bible. Right. You didn't deal with those issues. You didn't deal with the same problems that they had. But the one issue that you have in common with them is the issue of sin. A lot of times, too, with students and with young adults and just, I would say, people in general, when you can bring more similarities to a situation than you can things that are different, the similarities allow me to bring my wall down a little bit more, because then I'm seeing like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like there are some similar things, so maybe I can learn from this. And so the number one issue is level the playing field. It is sin across the board. And then, and it's everyone sins differently. Mm-hmm. It's things that you struggle with, I don't struggle with. Things that I don't struggle with, you don't struggle with. So there are all these levels of it being different. And it might not be something that I struggle with, but there are other people that struggle with it.
Yeah.
So you're not alone in that. And that's the biggest thing. Because we have that mindset. We always feel like it's just me. Like it's just me that has this issue. And so a lot of times I like to be able to introduce students to other leaders or other adults who have had that, been able to be successful in maintaining a level of character and integrity and faithfulness to God through battling those difficulties. Not to say that they never failed, but they understand that it's a battle. And so maybe they can walk alongside this student and say, hey, like, I'm here too, and I struggle with this, so I'm gonna fight with you. I'm not just gonna, and that's the thing. It always goes back to the leadership principle of not just telling or saying, but showing them. Yeah. We have to be able to demonstrate the love of Jesus with what we do, not just say to do, not just say do this. Right. No, like let me show you how we can do this. And I have found that it's so much successful when you walk through them. You walk with them through the journey. Right. You just don't tell them how to walk. And I always go back to, I know there is some principles in leading above, but I'm a huge advocate of leading among a generation. I think that's so important.
Yeah. So with kids that you're working with, what have you seen as positive ways that once you're working with a kid, I mean, obviously the goal is to then disciple them so they can disciple others.
Absolutely.
And so what have you found, what ways have you found work best where kids are able to take what they're learning from their leaders and then applying it to other students?
Yeah.
Podcasting is something that I try to use as a ways to communicate, and I understand podcasting and anything digital, video is good content.
Yeah.
But it's not a replacement for one-on-one or in-person discipleship.
Oh, absolutely.
And so how do you communicate that? And I guess part of the answer is by showing them by doing it.
Yeah.
But if they want to branch out and start a YouTube channel, start a podcast, what kind of guidance would you give that kind of student?
I mean, I'm a huge, and Refuge is the organization and the ministry. We're huge in mentorship. Being able to have a mentor, being able to have that one person that can pour into you. And having people that can pour into you from that spiritual aspect, but then the practical aspect, like saying, hey, listen, dude, do you want to get in podcasts, YouTube? Let me connect you with my buddy Scott Cunningham. Let me connect you with Rob Z, which one thing that Rob does do is Rob is very good at being able to say, hey, man, if you have some students that are into this stuff, I'll teach them, I'll mentor them. And having key people in the community that are successful in what they do. And saying, hey, like these are some successful business people that love the business, but also love the Lord and are good people or moral people or ethical people, and they can teach you how to do this. And I found that has been something that is so important, is that I feel like students do need mentors in helping be able to tell their story, because some of them tell their stories through podcasts. Some of them can tell them through doing vlogs. Some of them can tell them through writing. Some of them can tell them just by standing up and speaking. So it's saying, okay, what is the most comfortable way for you, but also the most powerful way to use your giftings and what you have and your talents and your skills? What's the best way we can use that, harness that, and get you connected with someone who can help sharpen those skills and do that? And so through mentoring, I believe that's a huge, huge component, because, and mentoring is not sitting in my office and like, let's sit down and talk for 2 hours. No, like mentoring can be going fishing, going and saying, hey, we're going to go out to eat, or going and saying, hey, I got to do some work on my house. Why don't you come help me? And through this, we'll talk. Or I have to go do that. I have to go for a long drive. I got to go drop some stuff off, like maybe an hour away. Why don't you ride with me and we can talk? So it's just being able to capture them in moments where they feel comfortable and not moments of feeling uncomfortable. A lot of times when you got to do counseling, a parent will be like, hey, can you come to my house and counsel? Like, no, I'm not going to, because that's uncomfortable, because that's their safe zone, man. That's their safe area. It's uncomfortable for them, for me to step into that. So let's find a neutral ground that we can meet at, and I can hang out with this kid. And food is a wonderful thing. We love food. We do love food. And so being able to throw food down and saying, hey, like, let's just get a meal. Let me pay for you, and let's just talk and see how things go. And that, we have a Wendy's right in down near the hospital, and that seems to be a hub of a lot of one-on-one sessions for students, because they can walk down and we'll be like, hey, meet me down at Wendy's, for lunch, and I'll buy you lunch, and I want to talk to you about some stuff, and let's just walk through this. And so it's finding a location of familiarity to a student, and being able to mentor them through that process.
Yeah. So last question. And it's going to be a big one, so I'm going to warn you.
Oh, geez, here we go.
But I'm a dreamer, and so I love to cast a vision of what is possible, right? And so we've been talking a lot about ways that we can help, ways that we can mentor, ways that we can do things. And so my question for you would be, if this can hold true, and if we can actually get over our shames and our regrets and start mentoring, what are some of the possibilities? What does our area look like with what you're doing, with what Brian Curdy, that I'm doing another podcast with, what he's doing? You guys are kind of trekking along the same path as far as mentoring the kids and making sure that you're investing in them. What could this look like down the road?
This could be the definition of what we really truly believe Christian culture could look like. Because let's go back to Peter real quick in the Bible. So you find him in the Gospels, where he was one that betrayed Jesus, felt this level of shame, felt like he would never be used again. But yet Jesus still looks at him and says, upon that rock, you're going to be the rock. We will build the church. And Peter probably didn't really have a clue what was going on then.
No.
But it's speaking into the future of, like, this is what I see in you, and this is what you're capable of, and this is what's going to happen. And here we see this process of Jesus get crucified, he raises from the dead, and then he goes back to heaven. And you have Peter who's left. And Peter's like, okay, well, I'm not going to go back to the shame that I knew. What am I going to do? I'm going to fulfill the calling that was spoken over me. And then you have Peter who, more than probably anyone that we read about, had a huge impact on the Western civilization over there for planting churches, missionaries, like whatever it might be, being able, literally changing and preaching, and thousands of people are getting saved. Why? Because of him choosing to live in the faith and the promises that God has, not the failures, not the shame. So what I believe is this. I believe is if we can teach a culture to get past the shame, and we get past their fears, they can really activate that faith, and then we can truly see that longing of true, authentic Christian living in culture that we've seen, where they are the forerunners in all of Christian culture. And you and I have talked about this before, but I believe that Christians should be the forerunners in music, movies, media. I believe that the Hollywood entertainment world, I believe they should be looking at Christian.
Right.
Because I believe we should be the most creative people, and we should be using those gifts that God has given to us to be able to reach the world and to do amazing things. And there are plenty of people out there that are doing that, and I applaud them, and I'm so happy for that. But if we can help students get past that, then we can usher in a whole new level of Christianity and being able to spread the love of God. Because when there's no level of shame that keeps me quiet, then I'm able to stand my loudest and declare the faith and the love of Jesus Christ, because I'm a product of grace, and saying, look, if God can bring me this far, look how far he can take you. And if that message can be passed on from generation to generation, put me out of a job,
right?
Put me out of a job, and being able to do that. And then I can just sit back and disciple, and can do this and do that. But what's cool is with you saying that, we've seen that happen. We've had students that have come through, and I know Brian is the same way. We have had those students who have gotten over their shame, over their issues, over their thing, and they're enrolling in Bible college. They're enrolling in ministry school. They're enrolling in going into a secular university with the whole aspect of changing that university. They're going into the military, or they're staying in the workforce. And they're saying, I'm just going to go work. I'm going to love Jesus and I'm going to love my community. And that's what it's about. If we can help students overcome these issues of shame and of guilt and of all these things, they truly will change the world. Yeah. And that is what we desire. And not only will they change it, but they'll make it so much better for the next generation and the next generation, because this is a lesson of eternity, that you are constantly going to be able to be accepted by God with that forgiveness you ask for, with that grace that He puts out on you. And I'm excited, man. I love seeing students succeed, but when I see students fail, it does stir something in me to say, no, I know that you can succeed because I've seen it before. Yeah. And being able to just cheer them on and be able to just empower them. And like you said, it is a powerful word, empowering them. But if Christ can empower me, then I can use that empowerment to empower a student, who can then learn that empowerment comes through Jesus and not me. Yeah. And then he can empower their friends and her friends, and we just have a big power party, like it'd be great.
Yeah. One of the things Brian and I discussed, we have a podcast, the Gray Students Podcast, plug. But one of the things that he's teaching through the kids is that the church is not a building. Mm-mm. This all is the church, where we're gathered, where we're doing things, where we're living life is the church. And I love that picture that it paints. Yeah. Not that it makes the church building irrelevant, because that's where we, gather, but the emphasis is not on the building. The emphasis is on what we're doing.
Absolutely.
So we should be the hands and feet of the church. And we just recorded a podcast the other day with a student going off in his second year, and the things that the Spirit's doing is it's awesome. Yeah. And so, I think that we could be on the beginning track of really seeing somewhat, I don't want to use the word revival because I feel like that's like a overused word.
Yeah, absolutely.
But where our youth can finally see that being a follower of Christ is not, putting on your suit and tie and sitting in a pew. Mm-hmm. It's, and not that your salvation's works based, but that it's a living, breathing thing.
Absolutely.
that you do.
Yeah.
And so it's always great to talk to you. And I would love to have you back on again soon.
Oh yeah. It feels really weird doing this without Rob, because
our
last few months Rob, we miss you.
I know.
We do miss you.
Come back from California. Or is he back?
I think he's back. But no, it's always a pleasure to be here and be able just to talk about, the ministry and Lord and what God is doing. And I think that if we just always remember that true ministry is not it's a mindset and it's a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And I think that so many times people say, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm too old, I'm not qualified. If you have the mindset and the heartbeat to do this, you can do true ministry anywhere, no matter what, kids, young adults, youth, whatever the ministry is, you can do this as long as that's what's burning deep inside of your heart and in your mind. And so,
and God will use you just the way you are.
Absolutely.
You don't have to climb to a certain level for God to say, okay, now you're acceptable. No, He will use you where you are today. So let that be some encouragement. If you're just, holding back and saying, you know what, I don't think I'm ready yet. You're ready.
Yeah.
Take that step, trust in God and trust in His ability to lead you, and He will open doors. He will put leaders in your life to help you along that way.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for watching.
Absolutely.
How can people learn more about Refuge?
You can go and visit us on Facebook, Refuge Youth Network. We are also on Instagram, Refuge Youth Network. And then we have our website, www.refugeyouth.network.org. And we are getting ready for our new year. We have a few weeks. We'll be launching into some new things on the website, some new things we're doing social media wise. And then we have new t-shirts, so the sunglasses I brought you, the sunglasses. So we're going to be able to rep some things. But one thing, if you don't mind me putting a little plug in.
Go for it.
One thing we do have coming up is we have the last blast of summer at Del Grosso's amusement park coming up, which we're really excited about. In September 2nd, the Alan Scott Band's going to be there, a band called Versus from Australia, and then Colton Dixon from, I believe, American Idol. He's going to be there performing, and it is an absolute free concert. It doesn't cost anything. So I want to encourage you, if you love listening to Christian music, if you love listening to just music, these are phenomenal people to come. Hear them out. Check it out. It doesn't cost anything to get in the park, but if you choose to go to the park and you want to get some tickets, you can contact us through our Facebook, and I will hook you up with some discounted tickets for Del Grosso's Park. But if you're a youth pastor or a youth leader, we're going to have our Refuge table and tent set up, and we are going to be talking with youth pastors and youth leaders about our network and about our whole networking thing, which you and I have discussed in the past. And we just want to be able to help and be able to just speak life into to youth leaders, students, whoever it might be. So make sure to come by on, I believe it's September 2nd, and hang out with us at Del Grosso's Amusement Park.
Awesome. Definitely check that out, guys. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please share it. Give it to someone that could use some encouragement today. And as always, like and subscribe. And always remember to lead well. And we will see you next time on the 306 podcast.